Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Before we jump into the show, I want to share a great discount from Voice 123. In the show notes, I'll have a link for a 15% discount on a new Voice 123 membership at the $395 level and up. I've had tremendous success on the Voice 123 casting platform, and I have an affiliate partnership with them to provide this incredible discount to my podcast listeners. So the discount can be found in the show notes, so check it out. On today's episode, my guest is Sanya Simmons. Sanya is a voice actor based in Atlanta. She is an Odyssey Award-winning audiobook narrator, director, and a proud member of SAG-AFTRA, NAVA, APA, and PANA. Sanya has a deep love for social justice nonfiction and memoirs, especially those that center healing, activism, or music and sports. She's also drawn to rom-coms and cozy mysteries. Sanya's rich alto range also lends itself beautifully to mystery and psychological thrillers. No matter the genre, she leads with compassion, insight, and humanity in every performance. Sanya is also a musician, classical flute and voice, and the author of A Single Mom's Guide to Raising Black Gentlemen. Sanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We were talking before we started to record how our paths crossed because we served on a subcommittee for one of the organizations that I mentioned earlier, the Audiobook Publishers Association, and then we got cast together in a series of sweet rom-coms, which again was coincidental. And then we got cast again for a nonfiction book where we're now co-narrating that book together as well. So I thought it was high time that we got together and talked on this podcast. So I'm so glad that you are here with me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And yes, isn't it interesting how the powers that be kind of put us together in two totally different arenas?
I know. Kind of cool. I really, really was kind of blown away by it. But let's start by having you share your journey into this wonderful world of voiceovers and audiobook narration that I know both of us love.
So this is my retirement career too, Mike. I had left the restaurant business after a combined total of 20 years. And I was dealing with some health issues. I was on disability, and I was really looking for something that I could do and still feel like I mattered, even though I couldn't go out and work a traditional job anymore. And I had always liked doing voiceover type stuff. I had always been interested, but had never kind of jumped in. And my sister, Tanya, told me one day randomly, "Oh, I got a voiceover agent." I was like, I've always wanted to do that. And she said, "Well, why don't you?" And I said, "Because that's your thing." And which went way back to high school. We're twins, and we always said we would never do the same thing because we weren't competing with each other. So the one time we did, we both tried out for the school radio station, and she got it and I didn't. So from then on, in my mind, that was her thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's, we're adults now. And she's like, "Sanya, we can just be a voiceover family." I was like, "Oh, okay. So how do I get in?" So she said, "Well, just take a class." And I was like, "Well, where do I find a class?" And she actually went online and found Atlanta Voiceover Studio. And they had an intro to voiceover workshop that was a one-day workshop. And I went and I was hooked. I mean, we had time on the mic. They talked about all different types of genres. And of course, everybody starts out with commercial, right? But when they're talking about the different genres, they said, "Oh yeah, and audiobooks." It was really almost like that, just a throwaway. And I said, "Audiobooks? Ooh, that's what I want to do." And because I've been a lifelong reader. I know that sounds cliche, but like literally in the summers, I went to the library every single day. You know, it has just always been something that I loved. And so, um, Virgo that I am, I had to wait until I had taken all the classes so I knew how to do my DAW, how to, really get into the audiobook business. I took a workshop on audiobook demo workshop with Aaron Spencer, and that was through Atlanta Voiceover Studio too. So then I just started auditioning. Once I got all my ducks in a row, I started auditioning, and I did my first book in November of 2021.
So relatively recently.
Relatively
We're
recently.
getting there. We're pushing, pushing 5-6 years now, but
Yeah.
relatively recently. And the where you started to audition, I'm assuming it was ACX.
It was ACX. I booked my first job. Well, actually, though, one of my teachers had also referred me to a producer at Lantern, which is now John Marshall Media.
Sure.
Um, but so I did a book with them, and then I did a series with an author on ACX. And I have never done anything else from ACX. That author was great to work with. I did several books, and they were putting out a ton of books and said, you can have as many as you want, but they were royalty share only. And so it got to the point where I said, can we do royalty share plus? And it wasn't in their budget. And so we decided that I wasn't going to do any more with them because I really needed some kind of money that was going to pay for what I was doing. Royalty share worked really well though for a while. Like I still get small royalty share checks from them, which is great. But, then with all the controversy with ACX and is it fraud or is it not, I just haven't, because I also got busy with publishers, and isn't it nice not to have to do my post production and all of that stuff too? So,
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. And I know that I often tell people who are interested in getting involved in audiobook work that ACX is kind of the place where almost everybody starts, at least
mhm,
everybody that I know of that's an audiobook narrator. And it is a place for those listeners who might not know, it is a place where you can create a free profile, and it's where rights holders can connect with narrators/producers, and you can audition for titles, which
mhm,
sounds amazing. But before you run off and create your account on ACX, just understand that your responsibility as the narrator/producer is to fully produce the title, meaning you have to submit files that meet all the tech specs that ACX requires, and it has to be ready to be uploaded to Audible, Amazon, and all those other places where people get audiobooks. So, when I did my first book, it was, again, royalty share. I think my first 5 books were royalty share. And it was a 13-hour book. And I went from elation to panic in about 5 seconds
that was
because
your first book,
first
13
book,
hours?
13 hours.
Wow.
So I was so excited to get in my first book, but then I realized the realization hit me that, oh, now I have to figure out how to edit this and do all the things that you have to do,
Mhm.
which I was able to work with a friend of mine who was also a voice actor as well as an audio engineer. So he actually did the editing for my first 5 books while I taught myself and got myself up to speed.
And you were doing that on royalty share and still paying for your post?
Oh yeah,
See, that's why I wanted them to do royalty share plus
yeah. They
to at
didn't even
least
have that
cover
back
my
when I
expense.
started. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. And again, for those people who might not know, royalty share plus means royalty share means you don't get paid anything except when the book sells, you'll get a percentage of that, and typically it might be a couple of bucks per download. Um, But Royalty Share Plus is something they implemented several years ago where you can get paid a smaller amount per finished hour to cover your time, and or if you were going to hire somebody to do that for you, you can get maybe $50 to $100 per finished hour, which at least covers your costs of producing it. That way you're not way behind when the royalty share checks start coming in. So that's a nice addition that they've put into the list of things that they offer beyond per finished hour rates. But a lot of people will start with royalty share because my objective was to just get my body of work, get some books out and get them up on Audible. And, again, I tell people a lot to, in the beginning, it is an investment of time and money. And not everybody starts with royalty share. I'm not telling anybody to start exclusively with royalty share. If you see a title that's 200 to 400 per finished hour rate and you want to audition for it, then go for it. But the most number of auditions that are available to you are going to be royalty share. And the higher up you go in the pay rate, the less titles there are to audition for. So the more competition there are for those. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. But yeah, the royalty share thing was okay because at the time I had a full-time job and I was able to do this and I wanted to build my body of work. But it is tough to jump in there and all of a sudden realize that you do a 5 to 10 hour book. It's going to take you 30 to 40 hours to not only narrate that, but to edit it, which is a
Hmm.
lot of time.
Right. Prep it too.
And to prep it. Yeah, especially the fiction books. I do a lot of nonfiction work, so I don't have to do as extensive prepping, but fiction books, YA, anything that's fiction, romance, sweet romance, requires you to kind of understand those characters. And so you've got to basically read through that whole book and prep it and figure out how you're going to do those characters. And that takes time.
Even with nonfiction, I find that I get a lot of books that do require research, pronunciations,
Oh, yeah.
names, different languages, with words from different languages, that kind of stuff. It can be intense.
Yeah, that's why I pay my son a little bit of money to go into the index, and he does all my research for me and
Oh, do you?
gives me the document with all the links. Yeah,
I
so
like that. The index is a
yeah,
really good tip,
yeah.
although we don't usually get that.
Well, and sometimes when they give you the prep, you get the index. When they give us the recordable scripts, there's no index,
Oh,
but the prep
okay.
often has an index. So I'll have him kind of scroll through that and
I
find
will
those
look
for
at that
me.
because I usually don't prep the prep script. I wait till I get the other
Right,
one in case I'm, annotating or anything. I
right.
want it on the actual one I'm going to be recording from.
Yeah.
But I didn't
But
think
prep,
about
well,
that.
there you go. A little tip for everybody listening and for
Yeah.
Sanya. So what was the transition like from ACX to now reaching out and getting on some rosters for publishers and producers? What was that transition like? How did you go about doing that?
So, a couple different ways. For me, it's always important to build relationships with people and not be transactional. Um, I started joining committees, like the DEI committee at the APA, and actually eventually ended up chairing one of the subcommittees. Um, and it was a new narrator workshop committee. So with that, I got to meet lots of producers, because that workshop has a narrator panel, a producer panel, and then the new narrators get to go in a room with a producer to read for them and get feedback. And it's funny because I had never actually attended as a narrator, but being on that committee gave me the opportunity to moderate the producers panel for them to see who I was, and um, get to, communicate with them behind the scenes, and then go into APAC, meeting people in person, and sending emails, just introducing myself to folks. And um, it's a long process. It's definitely not a
Sure is.
sprint
Yep.
because they're busy and they don't always respond. But what I've learned is they do read. And sometimes out of the blue, you'll get an email. Hey, I was thinking about you for this project, And then it's really super important to me once I do get an audition from someone that I send out my best work. I don't just call it in, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
then when I book something, communicating with them, getting my work turned in on time because they have a schedule, and, showing gratitude, a simple thank you for thinking of me for this, or, I'm really enjoying working with you. One of the producers who sends me a ton of work, when I hit a milestone, um, I qualified for SAG insurance, which was a big deal, right? And I
Hmm.
was so excited. And I emailed them and I said, I just qualified for SAG insurance. Thank you so much. You had a big part in this because of all the work you send me. And, they're people too. They want to be appreciated. So to me, it's all about the relationships and the work comes, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. I love that because that's exactly what this industry is. It's a network system. It's not a
Hmm.
linear system where you do one, two, three, and four happens. It doesn't work that way.
No.
And the best way to develop contacts and people who might hire you is to submerge yourself in the industry. And all those things that you said are phenomenal pieces of advice. And just so people know, APA is the Audiobook Publishers Association, and APAC is the Audiobook Publishers Association Conference, which occurs generally every other year in New York City, every other year out in LA, and sometimes it's virtual, or I think you might know better than I how they alternate that, but it's one of those three typically.
Yeah, like I think this year was supposed to be Audis in LA and virtual, but
Right.
I believe I saw somewhere that the Audis are going to be in New York again, so maybe they're not going to LA this year.
That would be good for both of us because we're
Yes.
both on the East Coast.
East
So
Coast.
yeah. But in any event, there are great opportunities, and the Audiobook Publishers Association Conference (APAC) is a place where producers and publishers and narrators and producers come together, and we're
Mhm.
all in the same place, 600 of your closest friends. So you're there in front of people. And I've had those conversations when I got my first book with Tantor back in 2019, I think now.
Mhm.
Um, I met the casting director at APAC, and I had cold emailed her a couple of weeks before. I'd kind of forgotten that I had cold emailed her because I'd sent out a lot of emails.
Mhm.
And she saw my tag. I met her, which again was amazingly coincidental, random. But I was standing in front of her and she saw my name tag. She goes, "Did you email me a couple of weeks ago?" And I'm like, "Yes, I think I did." And she saw my tag, saw where I was from. She's from Canton originally, which is near where I'm from. And we had that kind of mutual conversation. And she said, I got your email, but I was getting ready for APAC and let me dig out from underneath this and send me an email in a couple of weeks. So I did. And 3 days later, she sent me my first book, and I've been working with them ever since. And because I
Isn't
got
that
that
awesome?
book, yes, it was amazing. And that qualified me for SAG-AFTRA, same as
Yep.
you. And at a subsequent APAC, I was talking to her in person, and I recounted that story to her. I said, because, of me meeting you and you giving me that book, that allowed me to join the SAG-AFTRA union, which was one of my goals. And so I want to personally thank you for that. We often think that these casting directors and producers are these impersonal entities that are out there in the world that are, hard to get a hold of, and they're trying to avoid us and they don't want to hear from us. They're human beings that are very
Mhm.
busy and they've got a lot going on. They're always looking for new narrators. And like you said, one of the things that is so important is once you establish a relationship or even a communication with one of those producers or publishers or casting directors, is when you get that work that you are consistent in the work that you do, that you deliver it on time, that you try to make as few mistakes as you can make so the proofers aren't having to come back with a whole bunch of pickups, which are basically them telling us what our mistakes are
Mhm.
and have them fix them. Um, if we can do that consistently, people in that industry are so busy and on such tight deadlines that they want to work with people that they can count on. And once you establish that relationship, it is incredibly important and valuable to maintain it in a professional manner, like you just said. So many great points that I just wanted to sort of put a fine point on because it's great advice.
It matters. It really does.
It does, and
And
it's not
and
easy.
no, it's not. None of us have it easy. And that's not to say you never miss a deadline, but you never miss a deadline without communicating up front that you need more time because they need to plan accordingly. You know what I mean?
I do, and communication is the key, no question. And I do talk to a lot of new narrators or people that are aspiring to be a narrator. And, you know, they want to sort of know what the quick path is to get to these publishers and get to these producers. And there is no quick path. You have to do the homework. You've got to get titles under your belt. And then you've got to literally I have a spreadsheet where I am emailing these casting directors and producers every 2 to 3 months on a regular basis and never expecting that they're going to return my email, because they will tell you that we might not ever return your email, but it doesn't mean we didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, a month or two later, all of a sudden you'll get a response from somebody you haven't worked with saying, hey, I thought of you for this title, because you're doing the work to put yourself in front of people in a non-spammy way,
Right.
just letting them know what you're up to, saying hello, touching base. And that's what you have to do in the industry, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a requirement, because they're not going to, until you start working with them consistently, they're not going to remember you, because they're getting hundreds of emails a week. And you've got to try to get through that. And the only way to do it is to do the work.
Yeah. How else will they know you when you're working in isolation?
That's right.
You know?
It's true. It's true. And, conferences I know can be expensive. Travel is expensive. Hotels are expensive. The cost of the conference is expensive. But again, this is a small business. So if you want to head into this world, it's going to be competitive, and you're going to have to invest time and money into your career.
And the other thing is, it's not just about narrator to publisher relationships. It's about building community with other narrators. Our
Hmm.
peers are just as important as, you know, publisher producer relationships are, because again, you don't want to be in isolation, whether it's encouraging each other or, going to conferences together, or, hey, can you listen to this audition for me and tell me what you think? And, you know, um, just helping each other along. I had a narrator who's ahead of me. I think she's been doing it maybe a year or so, a year or two longer than I have. And she reached out to me early on and offered help. And she was so generous with her time and encouragement and everything. And, I try to do that for newer narrators that started after I did. It's a great community because there's so much work. And even when I don't book a job, okay, that one wasn't for me. And that doesn't mean I'm not disappointed sometimes.
Hmm.
But it is kind of cool when one of your friends got it and you didn't. You're like, okay, that hurts a little bit less. Good for you. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. You're happy for them. Yes,
Happy for them, absolutely.
yes. We can acknowledge our disappointment and also be happy for other people,
Absolutely.
for sure. And Kelly Buttrick was a guest on the podcast. She's a voice actor, not an audiobook narrator, but she had a beautiful analogy, which was that of a compass. She said, if you think of a compass, north, south, east, and west, and she said there's always people in your journey that are farther along than you, and those are north of you. And those are the people that you're going to want to reach out to and say, hey, you know, could I buy you a virtual cup of coffee? Could I pay for an hour of your time? Could I ask you a couple of questions, short questions in an email? People that are farther along that you're trying to learn from.
Hmm.
There's the people that are on either side of you, which are your peers who are walking the path with you. And
Hmm.
then there's the people who are south on the compass, and those are people that are a little farther behind in their journey. And those are the people that you need to reach back to, just like that person did for you.
Hmm.
Reach back and say, hey, let me help you along, because you know what? Somebody helped me
Hmm.
along earlier in my career. And having all of those pieces in place is so important. People that you can learn from, people you can help, and people who are beside you, who are walking with you, who are going to be there to edify and support you through the ups and downs of the industry. And I thought that was a beautiful
I
analogy,
do love that analogy.
and so important,
Searching
so
for true
important.
north, huh?
Absolutely.
On the path.
As you got it. And meeting people and communicating with people, and even going beyond the producers and publishers, there's the people that support you as a narrator. There's the proofers and the editors who are also at these conferences.
1,000%.
And, they're there to make connections as well. And I had somebody come up to me, a husband and wife team came up to me at APAC this year and said, "Hey, Mike, we want to introduce ourselves. You have no idea who we are, but we edited all of your books for this particular producer. And we loved working on your books, and we couldn't wait to meet you." And I'm like, that is
Oh, that's
crazy
so cool.
because I listen to your voice so much and I love it. And they were this amazing couple, and we had great conversations, talked several times during the conference. And, our friends on social media now, we comment on each other's posts. We
Mhm.
have that friendship and relationship that has developed. And if I have somebody who comes to me and is saying, "Hey, I need somebody to help with proofing or editing," I've got a number of editors and proofers that I have relationships with. And now they're in my sphere of people who I will probably recommend to somebody. So
Mhm.
those are the things, the connections that when I said non-spammy is they need to be authentic connections. It has to be real. It has to be grounded in a mutual admiration and support for one another. It can't be, "I just need to connect with you because you need to hire me," because that
Absolutely.
people can see through
And
that a mile away.
and I have publisher friends that I'm literally friends with that either haven't hired me yet or have only occasionally hired me, but we're friends, couple years ago, not this APAC, but the one before, um, I did meet the producers, and the producer I was paired with was she was in the process of starting her own studio in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is where I was born. And my dad is in Boynton. And so we had that connection, right? She was new to the area, but of course, I said, well, whenever I'm in town, we'll have to get together. So now, whenever I go home, I reach out, hey, I'm going to be there such and such a day, we'll have lunch. She just opened her physical space recently. And so I was there in May, just before her grand opening, and I got to be the first person to try out her booth, which
Oh,
was
that's
super
awesome.
cool, and got to check out her new space. And, things like that matter.
Personal connection. I had
Yeah.
Donovan Cornitz, who's a promo
Hmm.
voice, and he was
Yes.
on the podcast. He's the voice of the Today Show.
Yes. I'm familiar. I've taken workshops with him.
Yeah, I mean, it was. He said it was a 9-year process for him to get that booking. That he had been communicating and talking with the
Wow.
director, casting director
Hmm.
for that show, for that network, and every time he was in New York, he would grab coffee with her, and eventually they were looking for a new voice of the Today Show. She said, "Look, I want you to audition for this," and so he did, and then he got an email back saying, "Okay, well, we need you to come into the studio." He's like, "Well, wait, wait, did I get it?" She goes, "Well, yeah, you got it. I mean, I had you audition, but I already told them that you were the one that I wanted." And he's like, "Well, why now?" And she's like, "Because I've been following you on social media, and I'd heard you do other auditions." She goes, "But I didn't feel you were ready yet." But he started posting on TikTok and social media some of the work that he was doing and how he would tell people what he was going to do, and then he would instantly do the audition, and then he would play the read that actually
Yes,
showed
I've
up on
seen
TV.
those posts of his.
She saw those and she's like, "He's ready," because he was able to switch instantly from, "Hey, everybody, I'm going to do this." Boom. And he would do it. She goes, "Because when you're doing promos, you've got to be able to do them, crank them out quick because they might call
Uh-huh.
you in 15 minutes lead time saying, 'I need a quick promo done.'" And she said, "Because I was watching you on social media, which we'll talk about in a minute, that I knew you were ready." But it took him 9 years they became friends. He wasn't just going to have coffee with her because he wanted a job. He genuinely liked talking with her and
Hmm.
conversing with her and talking about the industry. And she was very honest with him in all the conversations that they had. And 9 years later, he got the gig.
That's
So
amazing.
you never know. Speaking of that, taking 9 years, let's shift a little bit to obstacles. So, in your journey so far, any obstacles that have kind of jumped out to you that maybe you had anticipated or didn't anticipate? And more importantly, what have you learned from getting over those obstacles?
So, well, my first voiceover obstacle was and is commercial VO. I still haven't booked a commercial job. And um now it's like 5 years in since I took my first class, I think. Um and the thing is I got my demo pretty early on, signed with a couple of agents, but the thing is agents don't get you all your work. You have to be willing to do other work too. And I did a few pay to plays, but the ones I signed up for were not a good fit. I really do need to try Voice 123. But I haven't yet because I've been so busy with audiobooks. So audiobooks took off. Um, and I think the biggest obstacle for me with commercial, because I am a different voice actor than I was when I started. And I do think that, the genres are different because commercial, you have to get in and get out. And with audiobooks, you're telling a story. And mm, I think you still have to kind of tell a story with commercial, but do it faster,
Hmm.
So that was a challenge for me. I get that now. I've coached, I'm much more confident in that. But the other obstacle is that now I'm union and I'm in a right to work state. And so there's a ton of non union commercial work out there.
Hmm.
So do I break global rule one so that I can get commercial work? Or do I stick to supporting my union and only going where the union work is? And I have chosen not to do non union work. And, but I didn't realize when I joined the union that that would be an issue. And then it was like all the auditions dried up,
That is a challenge.
It is a big
A
challenge.
challenge. And even being in that arena, the most competitive genre is commercial work.
Yes.
And probably a subgenre of that is promo and
Mhm.
trailer work, which is, I think, even more competitive. And, there's just only so many movies that are coming out.
Mhm.
Um, and there's some amazing people that have come before and are currently doing them. People like Mark Ryder and Brent Allen Hagel, who
Mhm.
are doing beautiful, wonderful work for like Discovery Channel and movie trailers.
One of my coaches, Steve Henderson, is now doing promo too. He's doing great. So
Yeah, and
so
it's like the
exciting.
new breed, right? The new crop of
Mhm.
of these guys coming up through the industry, and male and female coming up through the industry. It is a very big obstacle for many of us, and again, for those who might not know, there is a carve out in the union for audiobooks. So you're allowed to do audiobooks, non-union audiobook work, and still be in the union. That is it's an issue that's been debated within the union, but that's the way it currently exists. And I think that's an advantage for people certainly that are new to the industry, who may want to get into the union but are afraid they might not be able to do, ACX work. You can do that.
And there's a way to do union work on ACX.
There is.
Um,
Yep.
but the other thing is there is such an abundance of union audiobook work.
Yes. A lot. And that is the one area of voiceover where, at least right now, there's more books that need to be narrated than there are good narrators to narrate them.
Mhm.
In the commercial world, it's almost the exact opposite, right? Smaller amount of work, a lot more people competing for it. That's why I love the audiobook world, because that's the base of has become the base of my revenue. And it's something that I wanted to do from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And, now I work every day narrating audiobooks. And then I also audition for other things. And I work with clients that I've had for years. PJ Oakland, who we both know again, said, that the reason he loved being an audiobook narrator, in addition to being an actor, he said, I know I can work whenever I want. And if I need to take a month off because I got cast in a TV series as a non-recurring role, I can go and jump over there and let everybody know I'm off the mic for a month, and then when I come back, I can say I'm back, and they'll start sending me books again.
Right.
That's the beauty, I think, of audiobook work. So that obstacle is a tough one. I don't know that there's a way to overcome it other than just be in the game.
Hmm. And we just figure it out, don't we? I mean,
Yes.
and just remain grateful that there is audiobook work and that I enjoy it. You know what I mean? I think that the work we do as narrators can be super intense, and I think you really have to love it to do it long term. Um, but yeah, I think when you ask about other obstacles, I wouldn't call this an obstacle, but I do think that it's important to be strategic about how we invest in our business, whether coaching or equipment or whatever. I mean, obviously you have to set up your studio first so you can work. But um there's so many opportunities out there, and there's so many coaches and so many classes and so many workshops and conferences and all that, that it's important to understand what I need right now, and just, okay, so I'm going to work on this quarter, and next quarter, I've got this coming up, and just spread it out, because otherwise you'll never end up in the black.
Yeah, and it's a small business, as I said
Hmm.
earlier, and a lot of people that come into it maybe have never run a small business before, so they're not
Hmm.
familiar with what they have to do in terms of time management, in terms of keeping track of their revenues and their expenses.
Hmm.
They've never used QuickBooks or FreshBooks to keep track of things. They've never had to talk to an accountant about how to manage, setting aside money for taxes, right? So a lot of people just
Right,
get
that
used to
part
getting a
right there.
paycheck. Yeah,
In fact, I'm having that conversation with my accountant right now, about payroll taxes, and what I'm going to have to pay them to do it for me because I don't want to do it, and that kind
yeah,
of thing.
I'm with you.
um just budgeting for it.
Did you incorporate?
I did. I'm an S corp
Yep, so am I.
instead of an LLC. But that comes with other requirements.
And are you considering this? This is kind of an aside, but are you considering yourself to be an employee of your corporation?
Yeah, that's what we're discussing.
Yep. At some point, I had to switch over to that as well
Hmm.
because the government wants you to become an employee when you're starting to make a certain amount because they rather than paying estimates, they want you to be an employee. So those are some of the tricky things that we have to navigate. Fortunately, I came from owning a small business, so it wasn't a big
Okay.
lift for me, because I was
Right.
used to that.
Uh-huh.
But it was still a transition because it was a different way of managing my time and a different way of tracking my revenues and expenses. So even though I had come from a different type of small business, it was still a challenge.
Hmm.
No question about it. So let's transition once more to talk a little bit about your music background because I mentioned that in the intro. Thought that was fascinating. So tell us about that.
Thank you. So I okay, so I come from a musical family. Um, my dad has a gorgeous voice. My mother was an extremely gifted musician. She was a pianist, organist, and oboist. And so there was always music in our home. And when I said I wanted to, well, actually, before that, I started taking piano lessons when I was like 5. Um, did that for a while. And then when I was 10, I said I wanted to play the flute. And there was no question. Whenever I said anything music, it was 100% support from my parents. So they got me a flute, which I still play the same flute to this day. Um, and I played flute all the way through college. Um, and classical was what I loved. In my high school, we had a full orchestra. So they took the best winds from the band to be in the orchestra. And I was one of two flutes in the orchestra. And we played incredibly difficult music in high school, music that a lot of colleges don't attempt. You know, we played Beethoven's Fifth, the Third, Haydn, Mozart. We played La Gazza Ladra, Haydn London Symphony, just a lot of really, really beautiful, beautiful music. And I just remember how music was my refuge with all the other stuff that was going on in life, you know? Um, and so when I got to college, I still wanted to play, even though I was not majoring in music. Um, and so I went to an HBCU, and even though orchestra was my love, they did not have an orchestra. So I was in the band, and in the fall, that was marching band. And in the spring, it was concert band. But it's funny because my section leader, who was a flute major, was drum major on the field. So that left me to be section leader on the field, which was hilarious because it was an HBCU dancing band, and that's not what I marched in high school. And I'm not a great dancer, but I could play. So I was section leader on the field because I could play, not because I could march. So it's always been kind of funny. And the thing is, though, my band director in college tried to get me to major in music. And I said, I was young and naive, and I said, no, music is my release. I don't want it to be something I have to do.
Mm.
And, you know, well, at least minor in it, he said. And I was like, no, no. And I don't think, you know, as much as my family supported music, I don't think it was ever even considered as an option that I would major in something like that. You're
Hmm.
smart. You're really good at math. You need to be an engineer, you know, and but math and music go together, right?
I think so.
Music is
I'll take
math.
your word for it.
They really do. They really
Yes.
do. But anyway, so I never formally got that music education in that way, but music's part of who I am. And it's funny because I've also sung in church choirs off and on throughout my life, and more on now, you know, over the past 10 years. Um, Now that I'm not in the restaurant business. When I was in the restaurant business, it was kind of hard to be in a
Hmm.
church choir when you're working so many Sundays.
Sure.
But my choir director really has helped me to not discount my musical ability and to see myself as a musician. That was even a transition, being able to call myself a musician. Yeah, I am, even though I don't have a formal music degree or anything. Um, Kind of like we do as actors, right? Like I'm an audiobook narrator. I don't have classical acting training, but I am an actor, you know?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um it's all in perspective, and you know, just giving ourselves credit for the talent and the creativity and the work that we do, right? So now I'm also singing in our local symphony chorus, which is amazing. You know, the first season that I did it was we did Mozart's Requiem,
Mm.
which I loved. It was so like I remember coming home from the first rehearsal, and my neurodivergent brain was so happy with that
Yeah.
Mozart. And it was difficult, but you know, I love the challenge. And really cool thing about that too is my son Tommy is a very gifted trombonist, although he doesn't play, and I wish he would
Mm.
play now. He's kind of set it aside, but he is singing with me in that chorus now too. So we get to enjoy that
Oh, that's
together,
nice.
which is really cool.
That is awesome. We have we live right near Skidmore College, which
Hmm.
is up here in upstate New York, and every year they have a jazz institute. It's a 2-week program where they have students from all over the country come, and they're taught by these amazing jazz musicians from around the country and around the
Hmm.
world. And that's sponsored by a local company here, and the concerts are free. So we can walk, we literally live across the street, so we can walk to this beautifully acoustically treated auditorium and listen to these. They're called the Jazz All-Stars, which are the teachers get together and perform. So it'll be a piano player, bass, drums, and we'll always have either or both, trumpet, trombone, um, and saxophone
Hmm.
sometimes. And not being a musician myself, sitting in that audience and watching that live and watching these individuals perform that music is just mind blowing in terms of the difficulty that it must be to play those types of instruments, but the ease with which they make it appear. And I would imagine for you, it all probably almost becomes almost like second nature to you, but yet you still have to be really, really good to be able to make it look like you're not even trying.
Absolutely. And I don't know that it's ever like totally easy. You know what I mean? Like every music takes your entire body, your mind, your physicality, the breath, you know, all of it. And especially if you're playing a wind instrument, which I do with the
Hmm.
flute. Um, and I say do because I do still play flute at church very regularly.
Hmm.
But same thing with our voice, right? And it's interesting when you talked about your experience watching them. Well, that was one of the things that I loved the most about playing in the orchestra was, I'd have the trombones blaring behind me and the strings bowing in front of me and to be surrounded and the timpani, all of that. It's like music touches my soul. And I think it's the only universal language that, you know, connects us, right? Just
Definitely.
I don't know. I don't mean to sound corny or anything, but
Mm-mm.
it's it really touches me in that way. Um and it's just a beautiful thing. Um I don't listen to a lot of podcasts and I'm definitely not into reality shows, but I love anything that's like a music documentary that talks about the behind the scenes and how they write these songs and how something there's a really great documentary about We Are the World,
Hmm.
and I think it's called The Greatest Night in Music or something, and they talk about everything that went into that recording that night. It's so fascinating. um yeah, so I'm putting it out there. I really want music memoirs.
Right? That would be amazing.
That
And
would be really amazing. Spotify just put out a friend of mine posted that she did one on Aretha Franklin. And they have a series of, I think it's called 33 and a third, where they do different musicians. I'm saying I get one of the next
I
batch.
want one of those.
I want one, please, please.
And I could tell you that, and by no means am I telling anybody in the world that I am a drummer, but I have a drum set, and am in the process of learning to play the drums.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I will. Well, I won't say that I would never be good enough to play in a band because who knows. But what I do, which is what most people that are drummers do, is you put your earbuds in, pick a song, and you drum along with it.
Hmm.
And just that, when I first did that, because I said earlier, I'm not a musician. We have a piano. I learned to play a little bit of piano when I was younger, but never pursued it. But when I put those earbuds in and I am playing along with a song, it's usually a song that I love or like.
That has a great drum solo, of course.
That does. Yes, that I'm pretty much kind of in the beat phase right now. I'm just
Okay.
happy to keep the beat, but
Okay.
even keeping the beat is the feeling, like I'll close my eyes and I'm just like, what is happening? Like I'm listening, like just what you just said. I'm listening to the other instruments on my earbuds, which is nothing like being in an orchestra, but as close as I'll ever get. So, but I'm feeling that submersion into this music. And I remember saying to my wife, I'm like, I can't even imagine how that would feel to you in your soul to be on a stage with people that are performing and you're just in the moment playing that music. It's literally surreal. So that was my very minor comparison to what you just said you experienced in the orchestra. So I kind of get it on a very
That's
small
not
level.
minor. That's it. That's it. Don't downplay it.
Oh
Yes,
man,
you
it was
get it.
amazing.
It's amazing.
Blew my mind. So, I guess I get
Good
it,
for you for learning now too.
I know. Santa brought it for one of our children, and you know, but he kind of secretly always wanted a drum set. So Santa was
Gotcha.
really kind to me. And my
Now,
son
does your
doesn't
child still
interest it.
play?
No,
Does your
he
child know
doesn't
that?
care about it. No, but
Okay.
Dad's glad that Santa brought it. That's for sure.
That's funny.
Um, so I love that aspect of you, and there's no question that your musicality is a help to you as a narrator and as a voice actor. Unquestionable,
Absolutely.
I imagine.
Hmm. Definitely. Um, the voice is an instrument, and just it's interesting because I know when I first started doing voiceover, I would hear people say a lot, "Don't be sing-songy when you're narrating," or whatever. And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I still don't get what they mean by that, but I guess not to get into a pattern with something, but just speak more naturally. But I think there's still a cadence, and different characters might speak with different cadences, or
Hmm.
to me, it's about what has the author given me, because I can hear the author's intention when I read it. And when I say hear it, I mean when I'm reading it to myself visually, not even when I'm reading out loud. um, I can pick up on what the author's intent is, and I try to emulate that as best I can. But you are, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, you're playing their song
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
narrator, right?
right. They're artists, and that's their medium, and your job is to bring that to life. And having that musical, Rodney Salisbury, who's a friend and was a guest, was a very accomplished voice actor and trailer promo guy. Um, he actually was a music major in college, and he said, absolutely. He said, I'm singing every piece of voiceover work that I'm doing. I'm
Hmm.
speaking it, but in my mind, I'm singing it
I
because
love
the
that.
correlation is just so perfect.
And there are a lot of musicians in voiceover. Karin Gilfrey is an opera singer.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
Have you, speaking of seeing each other on social, she has posted stuff of her and she's amazing.
Oh, of her singing?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
So, one more transition.
Hmm.
You are also an author,
I
as I
am.
mentioned earlier. And the book, as I said in the intro, A Single Mom's Guide to Raising Black Gentlemen. What was the impetus behind that book, and what was the experience like writing that and entering into that world of being an author?
So let's see if I can give you the abbreviated, that's the word of the day that I can't say, abbreviated version. Um, I got divorced when my kids were still pretty young, and their dad was largely absent at that point. He was going through stuff. And I looked for books to help me with these two boys, things that you think a father should be there to handle. As a mom, you still have to deal with whether they're there or not. And the only books that were out there were hugely academic and written by men. And so they didn't answer the practical questions that I had about, even how to teach him how to clean himself in his private areas, or how do you talk to him about sex as they get older, and how do you deal with the school system, which is not designed for Black boys especially. I had one of my sons was dealing with some issues that I didn't know. We ended up finding out he was on the autism spectrum, and he was relatively late with that diagnosis. About 8 or 9 was when the doctors said it. But even in school, I had a school psychologist write a 30-page report about how he was not autistic. He was too verbal to be autistic,
Mm.
and some stereotypical things that she said about him. And, that struggle. And um, I had very intentional things that I was doing about, my philosophy of raising my children, with love, and just letting them make mistakes at home instead of always correcting everything. But I felt like they should be able to make those mistakes while they're at home so that they were better equipped to work through problems when they left home. And, allowing them to express disagreement with me as long as they did it in a respectful manner, things like that. I was not an authoritarian parent,
Hmm.
but it was hard. And so when you see things that are happening when you're in it, it feels like, am I doing the right thing? But in my soul, in my, we talked about soul has come up a lot, but in my heart, I knew that this was in alignment with how I interact with the world and how I wanted to interact with my children and how I wanted to raise them to be good people, good men,
Hmm.
and the whole title, Raising Black Gentlemen. When I was still married, my ex-husband and I were arguing about discipline, or how we, something about parenting. And he said, I'm going to raise him to be a man. And I said, yes, you are. And I'm going to make him a gentleman.
Mm.
So that's where the title comes from. But anyway, so one day, I was going through a particularly hard time, and I said, I need to write this down. Why, I'm doing this, this, and this, and this is why. And it just became like an outline for this book. I never set out to be an author, but I shared it with a friend, and she said, this is really good, but it's not done. I want to hear you talk about this more. And at the time, I was still in the midst of the pain,
Hmm.
and I didn't have anything else to say. So I kind of put it on the shelf for a while. And then 7 years later, I picked it back up. A friend of mine had posted something on social media. She was um, working as a literary agent. And, I reached out and I said, I want to talk to you about my book. And so she was very encouraging. And when she saw it, she's like, oh, yeah, this is great. And so I did flesh it out more, gave some personal stories. My children were adults at that point, and they gave me permission to share some really personal stories. So it was nice to have their permission to do that. And that's what became the book. And it was really important to me to offer that to other moms who were looking for answers. And the feedback that I've gotten from those who have read it is, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing your story. And another really nice piece that I'm proud of is the boys each wrote, I call them, they're the boys, they're
They'll always
men,
be the
but
boys, right?
there'll
Yeah.
always be the boys.
Mhm.
They each wrote a page at the end. So they get the
Mm.
last word, and they
Oh, that's nice.
narrated their piece on the audiobook as well.
Either one of them ever have any interest in becoming a narrator or voice actor?
So Tommy has taken some voiceover classes and said that he wants to do it, but he hasn't really pursued it.
Mm.
Hasn't gotten his demo done or anything like that. Although one of my agents signed him just after he did an audition for them because they were looking for somebody his age. So he technically has an agent, but I don't know if he receives auditions or not.
That's great. Yeah, it's always tricky, kids following in their parents'
Yeah,
footsteps, but and we want to encourage them, but obviously we'll never force them to take that path,
right.
if unless they want to. But I imagine that book was cathartic in a way for you, right? To get a lot of this stuff out there that you needed to say. And a lot of times when people create a song or a book, it's because there's something inside you that you just need to say, and it,
Yes,
and it needed to come out. And it sounds like it came out
absolutely.
quite beautifully. So,
Thank you. Yep. So, and I see it as something that they'll always have even after I'm gone. Um, it's kind of a love letter to my children.
I love that. That's
Uh,
great. And I'll put a link in the show notes too, so people can get a link to the book as well.
Thank you.
So we're down to our final question, Sanya, which is often the most difficult one. But if you were sitting across from an aspiring voice actor slash audiobook narrator and you had to give them one single piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
You can do it. Stick to it. You know, it is definitely a journey, but um make your plan, work your plan your work and work your plan. Is that what they say?
Yep.
Um, I think that it can get overwhelming because there are so many different things that you can do within voiceover, right? Um, go at one at a time and then broaden your circle. Like, we are always training,
Hmm.
but you can't always train and not do the work either, because at some point you do have to take the leap. Um, you know, Audiobooks are my main gig, right? And probably will always be my main gig. I love it. But I'm also interested in political voiceover, which, I got that demo done last year. It was nominated for a Sovis Award.
Oh,
Don't have any
congratulations.
political work yet. Thank you. And now I'm currently training for broadcast narration, which goes really well with audiobook narration.
Hmm.
It's a little different, but it's still telling a story. Um, so there's so many different things that you can do in this business. It's not the easy side money that some people make it out to be, though. So I
No.
think it's important to find that balance. But yeah, the main advice is stick to it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I say that to my kids all the time. I said the only thing that distinguishes me from anybody else is just one word, do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to do what I need to do to get where I want to get to. And, unfortunately, the vast majority of people aren't willing to do that. So if you can just get up and do it, you're ahead of most people.
Absolutely. My one of my teachers, uh, you know, Heidi and Mike, who are the owners of the Atlanta voiceover studio, have said to me more than once that I'm one of their students that actually did what they told me to do, and look at what has happened.
Hmm.
It's not rocket science, but it does take a lot of consistency and determination. And like I said earlier, also be strategic about where you're spending your money, and don't get in over your head where you can't come back from it financially. But, just do the work and build those relationships.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so essential. And we didn't touch on it, but I think social media is such an important aspect of what we do now, whether we like it or not. That is the way so many people communicate and the way people get in front of other people and the other way that people make genuine connections and genuine relationships with other human beings is through social media. And it's, it can be overwhelming at first. And the same piece of advice that you gave about being strategic, I think that um, you can't be all things to all people. You have to kind of choose what part of you wish to show to the world, number one, because you don't have any obligation to show anything to the world if you don't want to. But if you choose to do that, what is it that you want to share with the world? What's important to you? And to be able to be authentic in your social media postings and interactions, I think is important. Um, but it has become ubiquitous in our world these days. And so it's something that I have spent more time focusing on recently. But I try to be as authentic as I can be and try to put out positive messages to the world. But that's another aspect that can be kind of overwhelming. And sometimes you just got to sit down and do it. Make the video, send it. Doesn't have to be perfect. There's beauty in imperfection. Perfection is kind of boring.
So true. And I got to tell you, I love what you're doing with your social media. You're very
Thank you.
consistent. You know, you always look great. You figured out your lighting and like, I look at all of those things and you are very authentic. Social media is something that, I don't like doing videos, and it's been hard, but I'm trying to do them
Mm-hmm.
more. But even just posting, that's another thing that I have gotten help with recently. And, I fought it for a really long time, but, I say I fought it, but I didn't. I just wouldn't know what to post or whatever.
Right.
So this year, I got my sister to help me. Um, she is managing my social media and she's been great. And it's this particular sister, really gets me and how I talk, and like it really does seem like it's coming from me. And we do discuss, hey, what if we did this? Or, I might say, okay, this is the release and these are the people who I want to thank, that worked with me on this project, that kind of thing. But, she'll also nudge me, hey, we need some content. You need to create some content.
Mm-hmm.
What about if you talk about this? Or what about if we talk about this? And then one of my sons, Matthew, will help me if I need help getting pictures at an event or video or something like that. So, yeah,
It's overwhelming.
it
It's
can
another
be,
thing
it
on your
can
plate
be.
that you have to deal with. It's overwhelming.
But I'm at a point where, I can pay my sister to help me. And so that helps her and she helps me. So it's a win-win.
That's
And
perfect.
it's funny, the really cool thing, I was on a workshop virtually. I don't remember what it was, but I was in a room with some voice actors and I said how much I hated social media and that I was really struggling with it. Well, this year at APAC, one of the people that was in that room came up to me and she said, I've been watching your social media. You're doing great. I can't believe it. Like, I remember when you didn't want to do social media. And I was like, you noticed the difference? Yay. That was like such a win for me, because
That's awesome.
I am, as the part of me that is an audiobook narrator that loves to read is also quite introverted, even though I can present as extroverted.
You're an
So
extroverted introvert.
yeah, or ambivert.
Ambivert. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that even better. Yeah,
So anyway,
that's awesome. And before we wrap up, if people want to find out more about what you're up to, where can they find you?
SanyaSimmons.com or on Instagram, I am Sanya Simmons, and Sanya is Sanya. Yeah, those are and LinkedIn, just Sanya Simmons. So I post most on Instagram and LinkedIn, but I'm also on TikTok. I think there I'm Dreamy Sanya, which is not like dreamy in the Marsha Brady kind of way. It actually has to do with something else. But anyway,
I know we're friends on TikTok. Yay. I know we
yay.
are. And we'll be posting on social media pretty soon because we're going to post this episode, and you and I have some sweet rom-coms that are going to be coming out pretty soon.
Yes,
So we'll be posting about that and cross-posting and all that fun stuff. So
for sure.
it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, Sanya, and sharing your journey with my listeners. I really, really appreciate it, and I wish you continued success on your journey.
Thank you so much, Mike. Look forward to our next book together, too.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOpodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO podcast.